I'm Charlotte.
And I'm Morgan. Being a community means supporting each other. Our community starts here.
Why would I want the grocery store when I can support my friends and family in the community?
Support local. After 3 short months of vending at the local farmers market, we were asked to join the advisory committee.
We were just so flattered.
We discovered a new sense of community. Elections.
After learning from our community, one question remained. Are people involved locally?
In 2013, Bartow County City Council members won their seats with a 5% voter turnout. That means only 2,300 votes were cast out of nearly 50,000 registered voters countywide.
Council members determine our laws as vendors, as farmers, and as residents. If we don't support local, why should they?
We believe that if every community in the country bought local and voted in local elections, we could put United back in the United States.
Our mission is to inform, promote thought, and offer resources.
So, are you voting? Are you buying local?
What are you supporting?
Or do you even know?
I'm Charlotte.
And I'm Morgan.
First, a humble thank you to all of you today for extending your minds to listen, and to TEDx for giving us and many others the opportunity to speak. These are not only our words, but our lifestyle. We live to share this message.
To begin, we want to share a story with you, the story that brought us to this stage.
Our adventurous spirits have taken us on many journeys, some together and some apart. I traveled to London to study music business.
And I lived in Costa Rica and learned Spanish. After this time of cultural and self-discovery, we found ourselves back home with a new sense of community. And with this new perspective,
And a little push,
Charlotte convinced me to move on to the farm last summer, and I was able to help save the family garden.
now let me tell you, the vegetables were literally growing over my head and out of the garden. We were giving away our produce to the point of rejection. My phone calls turned into, no more squash, no more zucchini. With Morgan's help and a collaborative effort from a longtime artist best friend of mine, we started vending at our local farmers market. With the excitement from that first Saturday, and $67 later, we were hooked and started vending regularly, even sitting out in the rain. Our consistency at the market helped us build relationships within our community.
Within 3 short months, we were asked to join the advisory committee. As committee members, we felt personally responsible to attend a city hall meeting last summer about the farmers' needs in the community. To our dismay, farmers and community members did not share our same conviction. The lack of attendance was absolutely startling. One farmer got up and left before the meeting even began. After assembling to address needs in the community, we were left with one question: where was the community?
Thus began our journey of research. We looked at local legislation and voter statistics in our area, listened to stories from our community, and had a few experiences of our own. After scribbling on paper bags at the farmers market, color-coding information on a flip chart, and talking to everyone that would listen, we determined the most basic need of all: community involvement.
This conclusion led us to form our very own mission statement: to inform our audience about the issues that we found, to promote thought with the questions we were asking, and to offer resources to get involved in the community.
With this in mind, we firmly believe that if every community in the country bought local and voted in local elections,
We could put United back in the United States.
Our research has inspired us to develop our own interpretation of the flow of local support.
The 4 components of the flow include local farmers like ourselves, community members, elected officials, and local businesses. And when all of these factors work together, it creates an atmosphere of connectedness within the community.
The 4 steps to reach community connectedness are education, elections, cooperation, and integration. When engaged in these 4 activities, a community is involved, connected, and hopefully informed.
The first step is education. I know what you're thinking. Textbooks, exams, tuition, but that's not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about is a mutual exchange of information through experience and learning.
Now, there's something special about sharing stories with one's community. This magical occurrence called a relationship begins to form. And before you know it, you have customers that you can call your friends. That's what happened to us. We love your stories. We love that you are willing to spend that time to share your knowledge and wisdom with us in exchange for some vegetables. One story we really enjoy telling involves a grandmother from our community whose grandchildren suffer from severe food sensitivities. She was hastily gathering produce because they can only eat locally grown pesticide-free foods, like at the market.
And it's testimonies such as these that keep us going. The education gained from hearing these stories is absolutely incomparable. Through our research, we found that there's not a local seed savers exchange in our area. We promise heirloom, sustainably grown produce. So, our only option for seeds is to outsource. While this contributes to the cause overall, it definitely takes away from the community of farmers. By educating ourselves, we can educate others, whether that means starting our very own local Seed Savers Exchange or by simply sharing our practice with eager listeners.
Once we're educated and well informed, it's time to apply that knowledge, bringing us to the second step, elections. As mentioned in our intro video, our research found that only 2,300 residents voted on our city council members out of nearly 50,000 registered voters countywide. This is an estimated 4 people in 100. That would be like 4 of us in this room voting for our lawmakers.
Furthermore, we compared the statistics of those who voted for city council members versus those who voted for a transportation and education tax bill. We surprisingly found that 76% of voters voted for the tax bill, but only 24% voted for the city council members that brought the bill to the table in the first place. What kind of message does this send? We must realize that perception is reality.
If we don't support local, why should they? The foundation of these elections is cooperation, which brings us to the third step. Local business owners and community members are also local leaders who can have a voice for the people. Their cooperation, and yours, comes at spending time at assemblies much like the vacant City Hall meeting mentioned earlier, sharing the concerns and needs of the community.
Being a community means supporting each other. This means assuming your responsibility and seizing the opportunity to become involved in your community. Regardless of occupation, status, or class, we can all make a difference. We can all be involved in our communities. And our community starts here, in this room.
To fulfill the vision of community connectedness, we must integrate these ideas into our lives. Last but not least, we've arrived at the final step in the flow of local support, integration. It's important that community members, farmers, and businesses work together to source their products and services, as this contributes to our local economy.
One way this can be done is by local restaurants sourcing their produce from local farmers. We actually had our own experience with integration in this way. We visited 3 restaurants. The first one, which was not very receptive to the idea and decided to stick with their regional supplier. The second one was open to the idea, but had business and legal reservations. The third place, Aroma Mill Factory, actually sought us out. And through our perseverance, our garden was able to be part of the community at last.
Another way to integrate is by contracting farmers with a local co-op or grocery mart. An example right here in Kennesaw is down the road where Kroger sells dairy products from Homestead Creamery, who, of course, sources their farmers from the Blue Ridge Mountains. Now let's recap. The lack of involvement from our community drove us to develop the flow of local support.
The 4 components of the flow include local farmers, city council members, elected officials, and local businesses.
The 4 steps to reach connectedness among these components is education, elections, cooperation, and integration.
And the key to all of this is communication, plain and simple. Now, I'll be the first to admit I'm not the best at communicating. I tend to not speak up until it's absolutely necessary. And the reason for this is that, like many others, I don't always feel like my opinions will be valued or that my voice will be heard. The truth is, I may be standing here with a microphone in a suit, but my opinions and my values are no more important than any of yours are. We all have our stories.
Ours oftentimes, looks like this, and like this, and even this. But you know, regardless of the way we're dressed or the audience before us, be it 100 people or 10 tomato plants, being in front of you makes us no more valuable than any of you. The value is that we've spoken up.
We can all get involved in the community. A few ways that you can get involved immediately include visiting your Georgia Secretary of State website for voter statistics, locating a farmer's market nearest to you, and by simply attending city and county government meetings.
Our intention for this talk was to share our personal experience of awakening to the power of local support, to show that these words could be anybody's, even yours. With the world at a turning point, being a community is more important now than it has been ever before.
And this is a call to action. From wherever we are in our lives, we can all make a difference in our communities. We must realize that life isn't about instant gratification, but rather mindfulness of future generations.
The Iroquois believed in this idea of the 7th generation. In their constitution, the great law of the Iroquois Confederacy, their leaders wrote, and I quote, "In our every deliberation, we must consider the impact of our decisions on the next 7 generations," end quote. This indigenous nation believed in mankind and respected our environment enough to assume the responsibility of 7 generations to follow. Now, if we could all just close our eyes, take a deep breath, try to imagine what 7 generations from you will look like, and then open your eyes. We must realize that the decisions today will affect the reality of tomorrow.
And we are the leaders of this new reality on the forefront. We must realize that we are the future and the beginning of 7 generations from now.
If it doesn't start with us, will it ever start at all?